Brother Gander, good to have you with us. You want to say hello?
Sorry, I need to change my setting there. It's Andrew.
Right.
Good morning, everyone.
David, and where you hail from, Brother Gander?
With the Soar Lodge of Research, I was the worship master for 20 and 21.
Oh, very good. Okay, you have you on my list. All right. Can I get your full name?
Yeah, it's G. Andrew Martinez or George Andrew Martinez for full.
Oh, okay. That'd be Andy Martinez?
Yep.
Okay. All right, then I do have you. Okay, good. I know Zoom and all the online meeting things, you have whatever name you last had on there. So yeah. Some people put their names. Some people, when they come on here, they put their lodge info and a bunch of other stuff. When I do metrics after the meeting, it gives me everybody's name and if their email was in there or what have you. And some of them people just put whatever they want in there, and that's fine. Like for the parish list is Hanover County Sheriff and all that. You can just, if you don't know, you can enter any Zoom meeting and change your name to whatever you want just for that meeting, change it back, whatever. But people usually have at least first and last, but if somebody has just a name, I'll ask them like, okay, can I get your full name? Just so we have it. Yeah. Brother Oliveris, nice to have you with us. He was our guest speaker last time on speaking on COVID. It was very interesting. And Brother Sorensen, another regular. Good to have you with us, sir. If you want to unmute and say hi.
Yeah, thank you, Brother Douglas. Good to be here.
Oh, and here is Brian. I guess my link worked. Good. We got all kinds of people coming. And Ellen dropped out, came back in. The thing with these, and some of y'all will be talking about the Zoom meetings, but I know some of y'all must have been participating in some and ran some, but I put it out on Facebook primarily, and I had 7 attending and 14 interested. And that has no resemblance to how many actually show up. It's always a shot in the dark. I don't know how many actually turn out until they turn out. It's really hard to gauge. We normally get at least 10. There's only been, I think, 1 or 2 times where I had like 3 people. I said, okay, I give up. I'm not going to have a meeting with 3 people. It don't make sense. But generally we get 10 to 20. Our high water mark was 60. We had one time, and that was really good. I think that was the Canadian one. I'd have to look it up. But normally we get at least 10 to 15, and that's a good crowd for us. So, and some people are regulars, and all of you are here new. You're more than welcome to join us on a regular basis if you like. Brother Hone, good to have you with us, right, Worshipful?
Hey, Chris, how are you?
Very good.
To see you.
Yes. Brother Croteau, good to see you, sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right.
Brian, I dig the library, I have to say. And it actually looks like it's not a screenshot, which is great. I dig it.
That's right.
That is the nonfiction side of my library. You'll notice the little white labels at the bottom. That's Dewey Decimal System. And yes, I have them all on an Excel spreadsheet. And somehow I don't think you're surprised.
Of course you do.
Not at all.
I think I need to find an artist depiction of the library at Alexandria and make that my background. I think that'll be
there you go.
Cool. It's like here's my library. Pikers. All right, we got a lot of people pouring in. Let's see, Brother Brother Dungan, good to have you with us, sir.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I appreciate it.
Greetings, buddy.
Jeff, pleasure to see you again, most worshipful.
Greetings.
Let's see, Brother McCaig, good to have you with us. And Brother Bryant.
Thank you, sir.
Brother McCaig, what lodge do you hail from?
Hunter's Lodge in Blacksburg, Virginia.
Oh, very good.
Lodge 156, Blue Lodge.
All right. And Brother Brian, what lodge you hail from?
West Hampton 302, sir.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Getting a lot of Virginia Masons in here. That's a good thing. It's a funny thing. This is hosted by Virginia Research, but it's meant for primarily Virginia Masons, of course. But for some reason, we attract a lot of foreigners. I think we only got Brian here today. Normally, we have a whole slew of brothers from England and Scotland and Ireland and from Canada, and then occasionally like Eastern Europe, India. It's pretty great, but it seems most of our regular attendees are from other countries, which is really pretty cool. Just the way it shakes out. When I created Twitter accounts a few years back for all of my Masonic bodies, the Scottish Rite had over 500 followers, and like 480 of them were English lodges. I don't think there was any actual people on Twitter who were members of my valley besides my account. But it was there to, talk about Scottish Rite and promote our events to our members. And I'm promoting it to a bunch of British Masons who like tuning in. So I don't know. Twitter has kind of been a hit or miss for us. We still post on there. The Research Lodge, I post the papers there, but I think that's the only one I'm really actively using of all of them. It's just not a good medium for us to get the word out. We're not reaching our audience that way. I think I said hello to Ed Williams joining us. Yeah, 21 participants. Very good. Oh, Brother Joyner, good to have you with us. You're not on mute, but I can't hear you. Okay. All right, coming in. Brother William C., nice to have you with us. And Brother Malave, good to have you here, brother. Thank you, glad to be here. Okay, it's 10:05, so I'll do the introduction here. Welcome, every one of you. We're having a good turnout. More people are coming in. We're already at 22 people. My name is Chris Douglas. I'm the Junior Warden and Webmaster of Virginia Research Lodge in Highland Springs, Virginia. This is our bi-weekly unstated meeting, and I am posting in the chat for everyone some links. First, we have our Facebook group for Research Lodge. You're more than welcome to join us there, and we post our research papers there every week. Next is our lodge website, which is down this weekend for maintenance. I was told the other day it went down Friday afternoon, but we host all of our papers there, and it's worth checking out. A lot of interesting stuff on our website. Next is our YouTube channel, where I host all of these videos. Generally, I say within a week, but I've got at least 2, and this will be 3 meetings in a row I haven't uploaded yet, so I guess I'm a little behind in my duties, but all of the previous ones are up there for you to peruse. And last is my email. If you're interested in getting our weekly research papers from not only Virginia Research, but also A. Douglas Smith, and hopefully soon some of the other research lodges will start contributing. We send those papers out every week. We email them to over 1,800 Masons. They go on our Facebook page, which reaches another 1,800 or so, and that number overlaps to a degree. I haven't bothered to figure out how many are outliers, but I'm reaching over, I'd say, 3,000 Masons with that. And of course, we have our weekly Zooms every other week here. So it's good to see everybody here. We got more people pouring in. I'm going to give a few minutes, see if that trickles off before we introduce everyone. Brother, let's see, who did I say hi to somebody else who's new? Patrick, there you are. Last one in. Brother Patrick, good to have you with us, sir. Do you mind saying hello?
Thank you.
What lodge you belong to?
Firstburg Lodge number 4 in Firstburg,
All right.
Virginia.
Excellent. Okay. I will, let's see. We don't know. Rooster's not on. Normally Rooster and our senior warden are here. His name escapes me. I'm sorry. We do have Keith, who is our most illustrious Secretary Emeritus, Secretary Assistant. We won't quite let him leave his post kind of guy. Pete Gordon is supposed to be joining us. He's our new secretary because Keith admits he is a Luddite and doesn't know how to use these tubes and wires and such that we call the internet. So we brought on Pete because we wanted someone born in the past century who would be able to understand the technology. But Keith is going to be one of our panelists. I appreciate you being here, brother. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start introducing the panelists. Anybody who joins late can go watch the YouTube and get caught up. The purpose of our meeting today, let me read my, where'd you go? I'll read the blurb I put out there. Okay, to provide Virginia Masons with a better understanding of the 5 research lodges at their disposal, we have been asked to prepare an article for the Virginia Masonic Herald, our Grand Lodge quarterly magazine. A panel discussion with all 5 Virginia research lodges will explore the origins, history, and future of our respective bodies. We have risen to a high watermark of 6, and then we go back down to 5, and we get up to 6 again, we're back down to 5. But we've been at 5 for at least, I think, 10, 20 years or more. Virginia Research Lodge is the oldest, but A. Douglas Smith has been around almost as long, and most of the other ones have been at least 10, 20 years they've been around. So they've all got their own histories, and we'll go through all that. I'm going to run through the panelists. Let's see. Starting with A. Douglas Smith Lodge of Junior. I'm sorry. I'll use the full name at least once for everybody. A. Douglas Smith Jr. Lodge of Research number 1949. And that meets in Alexandria, Virginia at the George Washington National Masonic Memorial, if I'm not mistaken. We have Worshipful Andy Valenga, who was Worshipful Master in 2022. And, I'm going to count him. Right Worshipful Mark Allen Hone, who is Worshipful Master in 2017 and 2018. Anyone else here from A. Douglas Smith who's willing to be on the panel? Speak up. Okay. Civil War Lodge of Research, number 1865, which technically meets at Babcock Masonic Lodge, same as my research lodge does, but they actually meet all over the place, and they're going to be able to talk about that. We have from there Worshipful Andy Martinez, who was Worship Master in 2021. And do we have anyone else present from Civil War? Anyone? Okay.
Chris, I'm a member.
Yes, you are. Okay.
I'm probably the senior living past master.
Oh, okay. When were you Worshipful Master there?
96.
Okay. Same year, I was master of my first lodge, Ocean View, which is no longer with us. Well, I'm going to put you down as a panelist.
But Civil War Lodge has grown and evolved so much since then.
Mm-hmm. Well, if we want to pick on you, we could say, well, you all were sitting around and said, hey, there's a Civil War going on. Let's start a lodge about it. So, and you jumped on the opportunity. All right. Anyone else from Civil War? Okay. George Washington Lodge of Research number 1732 meets in Fredericksburg, Virginia at Fredericksburg number 4's temple. We have Worshipful Shelby Chandler. And if I get your titles wrong, if I'm missing something, just correct me and I'll fix it in the record. Worshipful Shelby Chandler, who is Worshipful Master in 2022.
Yes,
and
I was.
former,
and Charter Master.
Charter Master.
Well.
What's the one was that?
In 2012.
Okay. Yeah, see, so just 10 years. Okay. I thought they were fairly new.
Yes.
And were you the secretary or not?
I was the secretary.
Okay.
When Greg McCartney had to step down, I got rushed into it.
Okay.
So got certified and went in again.
All right. And then
the COVID issue.
Understood. Worshipful John Parrish, who is junior deacon this year. And I think worshipful master of a lodge right now. Are you not?
Yes,
John?
I'm the current worshipful master at Ashland Lodge, my Blue Lodge, but I'm very blessed to be a chartered member at George Washington Lodge of Research, and I have served under Shelby's esteemed leadership in a number of roles, but again, I'm in the progressive line serving as the junior deacon.
Excellent. And anyone else here from George Washington Lodge of Research?
Yeah.
Speak up. Who's that?
Jeff Hodges.
Oh, Jeff. Okay. Well, we're going to count you for that too then. Okay. And were you master at George Washington or just a member?
sir.
Okay. Okay. Well, I was going to introduce you next, but that's fine. And someone else spoke up?
Yeah, Chris, Alan Clark, charter member, George Washington also.
Oh, very good. Okay. Worshipful brother, what?
He's
Alan?
the right worshipful.
Right worship. Thank you. Usually it's safe to assume everybody's at least a worshipful, but so many of you all are district deputies. Were you master of George Washington? Alan?
Never master there.
Okay, that's fine. Okay.
Was master Colonial Beach 199.
I have been to Colonial Beach before they folded. When I lived in Fredericksburg, I drove all the way out there. It was at your annual. Whoever the guy, that was 90, no, 2003, maybe 4. The master had served for 2 years, and I was there at his annual when he was going out.
Yeah.
I can't recall his name though. Okay. Anyone else from George Washington Lodge of Research? That's good. We have 4. That's good. Okay, moving on to Peyton Randolph Lodge of Research number 1774. We have Most Worshipful Jeffrey Hodges, obviously past Grand Master, and was Worshipful Master in 2012?
Yeah.
Okay. Good you have here, brother. And Worshipful, sorry. I can fix that. Right Worshipful Brian Croteau is Worshipful Master this year, 2022. And Peyton Randolph, of course, meets at Williamsburg, number 6's temple. Anyone else here from Peyton Randolph?
I think we want to add one caveat.
Sorry.
Right worshipful Brian is the district deputy for the research.
I haven't got to that yet, but yes, I have that on my list. Yes. Virginia Research Lodge number 1777, who is your host for the day. We meet at Babcock. Yes. I'm sorry. Okay. We meet at Babcock Masonic Lodge in Highland Springs, Virginia, and we were, of course, the original research lodge in Virginia. We have Worshipful Keith Heinerman, who is the Assistant Secretary and Secretary Emeritus and whatever other title we want to throw at him. And he was Worshipful Master. You tell us what year, Keith?
1992.
1992. Okay. That was around the time I joined, I think. And then Pete, I haven't seen Pete Gordon yet. He was our other scheduled panelist. I'm, of course, a member of Virginia Research, but since I'm running the meeting, I didn't plan on answering any questions. So we also have here Brother Bernie Dungan, who's a member. If he wants to chime in with an opinion, he's more than welcome to, as well as there was one other one of us, I thought. Okay, today. Oh, yeah. Well, okay, Brother Joyner, I don't think it's fair to ask him to comment on behalf of Virginia Research since I just signed his petition this year. So you need to hurry up and become an expert so we can call on you. And
I think he's already an expert.
Yes. Last but not least, we have 2 of our district deputy grandmasters. For those who don't know, and I think everyone is in this meeting probably does, but the grandmaster, I think it was Most Worshipful Hershey, I may be mistaken, Mark will tell me if I'm wrong, decided that it would make sense to have, instead of, say, Virginia Research being under whoever the district deputy was for that part of Richmond, since we didn't really interact with the Richmond lodges and, we don't fall under the same structure that normal blue lodges do. We don't have to meet the same requirements they do. It didn't make sense to have a district deputy, us fall under the district we belong to. So we created a separate research district. I think that's a great idea. It helps tie the research lodges together, and they can be managed separately from the Blue Lodge because we have different requirements, and help us all share and improve and what also. I think it's a wonderful idea. Helps kind of bring us together. But Right Worshipful Mark Allen Hone was the original district deputy. He served from 2019 to 2021. And we have Right Worshipful Brian Croteau, who is the district deputy in 2022 and into 2023. So he's already been assigned a 2-year term, which only makes sense since we only meet 4 times a year, any of us. Any other district deputies? No. Okay. All right. So that's our panel. I very much appreciate all of you being here. And I'm going to start the discussion in a minute. Does any of our non-panelists have anything they want to say before we get started with the actual discussion? And we want to say hello. I think I introduced you all.
Good morning to the panel. How are you today? I just my first time logging in or to a Zoom meeting like this. I thought maybe you guys were going to change the secret word or found it, and thought I'd listen in. So I'm now going to be quiet.
Hi.
My name is John Kripliver. I'm in Calumet Lodge in Chesterton, 379, and a secretary there. So I'm just going to kind of listen. Thanks for having me, guys.
I'm sorry, Chesterton, is that Virginia? I'm sorry. Or what?
Chesterton, Indiana.
Indiana. Excellent. Well, John, good to have you here. We appreciate you coming out.
Thank you.
All righty. So as I mentioned, we have let's see, some of you overlap, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 11 distinct Masons representing all 5 research lodges and our district deputies. So I'm going to ask the question of the lodge. I will just say, A. Douglas, and one of you can answer. I think that'll be easier rather than you just decide amongst yourself who wants to speak, and that's fine. We'll try not to talk over each other, but it's going to be hard to keep track of going through each one. So I'll leave it to you to take turns answering or whatever you want to do. That's up to you. But I think we have a good representation of all of the lodges here today. So this should be a lot of fun. Some of you, let's see, Brother Ray Solomon submitted some questions, some answers for A. Douglas Smith, and Gordon Munholland submitted some for Civil War. So if I don't have a good answer, I'll jump over to their answers and use them. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Any questions about the format or anything before we begin? Okay. Okay, we're going to start with A. Douglas. How did your research lodge come to be chartered?
Well, A. Douglas Smith was chartered back in December of 1982 by most worshipful Lloyd Jefferson. I think that was his year. But it was chartered up in Alexandria for the purpose of basically establish a lodge there just to basically do foster research and promote the study of Masonry in general. Nothing very specific, but it's a unique location, located in Alexandria, meeting out of the George Washington Masonic Memorial there. Really kind of feeds a lot of that early America Masonic history and whatnot as far as what research topics go. Also, it's kind of a unique place being in Northern Virginia with the vicinity of the Capitol and all the goings on in the government too. It's a good reflection of kind of the way the Masonry evolved throughout the development of the United States. So, but it was founded back in 1982. Meets at the George Washington Memorial and is, like I said, focused on just general research. We don't have a very specific topic that we do, but
were any significant charter members?
Yeah, so Most Worshipful Stu Minor was one of our more significant initial members, and he really pushed also personal Mark Cohen can attest to this too. I'll let Mark Cohen talk a little bit about Stu Miner, as he did a paper on him. But yeah, he was one of the plank holders for A. Douglas Smith, and really kind of promoted that research mentality. A. Douglas Smith is named after Most Worshipful A. Douglas Smith Jr. And our number 1949 reflects the year he served in the East. So everybody's kind of familiar with A. Douglas Smith. He was basically the guy who lit the fire into research in Virginia, and
served in the East as Grand Master.
Yes,
correct. Yes, yeah. I've been a member of Virginia Research since 1992, 3, something like that, and I've come to know most of these early members, Alan Roberts, Stu Miner, all from the papers I've read. That's my introduction to them and things written about them in the transactions. So I don't know them. All of them passed long before I got involved. Keith actually remembers some of them, if not most of them, from when he joined. But A. Douglas Smith was very active in Virginia Research Lodge. And as you mentioned, he helped establish the one in Alexandria. So yeah, he's quite a few of these names come up repeatedly because they wrote a number of papers over the years. Mark, if you want to elaborate on Brother Miner.
Yeah, the only thing actually I would touch on 2 things. Andy's already said we don't have A. Douglas Smith does not have a specific focus in research. And if you look on our website and on the website that you, Brother Douglas, are adding our papers to your papers in, you'll see them there. It spans a gamut. It can be anything, literally anything. And but one thing that I'll draw a line kind of between most worshipful Brother Doug Smith and Stu Miner is they were both committed to I'll say scholarly kind of publication. Most worshipful Doug Smith was editor of the Virginia Masonic Herald, so clearly somebody who was involved in the written word and trying to encourage getting information out to the craft. Stu Miner, I never actually tallied up all of the things that he wrote and published and presented over time. But the group of papers that are in A. Douglas Smith's archives and that are now onto this other website is very small. He's got, we're probably in the hundreds, probably low 200s papers that Stu Miner wrote. And so I would tell you that legacy kind of lives on today in A. Douglas Smith. If you go to A. Douglas Smith, it is a paper-based research lodge. So you will come in, you will see people making presentations, but those presentations will be based off of a written form, and those I've had papers when I was master there, or just being a member there, of 20 pages long of research. Down to 3 or 4 pages, but it's primarily that flavor continues. So that's, I think, what I would add.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to Civil War. Again, going over the origins. How did your research lodge come to be chartered, and who are some of the charter members?
So the predominant one was Alan Roberts, who wrote House Undivided, and it was, from what I understand, it was a bunch of brothers that were also reenactors at the time. So they got together to form a research lodge, since we're kind of a very niche group. We just celebrated our 25th, I guess, 2020. So
when were you chartered again?
1995.
1995, okay.
And so it just grew from there. Membership is now up to over 300. And that's brothers in 30 states and 8 countries, I do believe.
All right. And I'm going to ask, I'm sorry, I do have all these questions. So if you don't mind, just answer the question I give you rather than, because I'm trying to keep them in order, but I appreciate it. So right now we're talking origins. So of course you focus on Civil War, and that's been primarily, do the papers only have to be about the Civil War? And there is something unique about you all that you travel. You want to elaborate on that a little, because that is unique that I heard. I was like, you do what?
So for the papers part, yeah, all the papers are predominantly on Civil War or what happened before or after during Reconstruction. And papers are still very new to us because that was kind of not what really we were about in the beginning. It was more of travel and friendship. And so to your second point, we do travel. We have 4 meetings a year. And the 3 that we do in April, July, and October, sometimes September, depending on how it falls out, we'll pick different places around the United States, and that's where the meeting will be. So we've gone as far west as Tennessee, as far north as Massachusetts, and as far south as Mobile Bay. So it just really depends on the whim of the master and where we can get dispensation.
So I was told, by my understanding when you were chartered, is that, say you go to, I don't know, the Appomattox battlefield, and someone will give a paper specific to Appomattox. That was your format. But you're saying originally you just traveled and met there. You didn't necessarily have a paper presented. But if you do, did it have to be specific to where you were standing when you gave the paper, or is that a requirement?
No, it wasn't. I mean, we've
Okay.
had speakers on different topics in different locations.
Okay. See, again, I'm only going off of what I heard, and I assume that was the case, but clearly it's not. It's just you do like to travel. So you could be at one battlefield and give a talk about something completely unrelated to that battlefield, but still about.
Yeah, but
Actually, Keith might be able to add some information here, but my recollection is that it was actually a departure from our norm to charter the lodge with the full intention that it would be a traveling lodge, more or less emulating the military traveling lodges and what occurred there. But it led the foundation for when we created the Lodge of Research in Southwest Virginia, the Hillman Lodge. It was intentional that they actually travel around the southwest part of Virginia so that more of the brethren could experience the things that actually were pertinent to that particular area of the state. I wish that it survived. I'm saddened that it didn't survive. But I mean, this was a departure from you're going to stay in one area and then have to ask for a dispensation to move to different spots. So it was really an experiment. I congratulate the brethren that saw fit to do this.
Good. Keith, you want to touch on that at all?
Most worshipful Brother Jeff is correct. That's what it was intended to do, and maybe only meet one time a year at Babcock and Highland Springs. Right. It was intended. And I remember Tom May was the most worshipful Thomas May was the Grand Master. And the idea was to study Freemasonry during that period of the American Civil War. And they were to travel.
Yes. Okay. Well,
may I say something to that?
Just a second. The traveling isn't in dispute. I guess my point was, my understanding was if they met at a certain place, then they would have a paper specific to that place. But that apparently isn't a requirement and isn't the norm. I'm sorry, go ahead, brother, whoever spoke up. Was that Shelby?
It was Shelby.
Yeah.
I was over at the 150th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg. I was not a member of the Civil War Research Lodge, but I was invited, and it's an amazing experience. While they may not have done the paper, they were taken through a tour. They were informed of everything that transpired during the battle. And it was, like I said, it's a wonderful experience, very informative. And basically, they ended it in having a lodge on a hill separate from everybody else, and they closed off the night watching the sun go down. It was brilliant. It really was. And the brothers are attired in the uniforms, and so it was a wonderful experience.
I think this is an important point to realize. That let's take the name Research Lodge and let's really go back to the fact that when Virginia Lodge of Research was established, we didn't have anything going on that was comparable to it. And for many years, the people that wrote papers were going into all kinds of research areas to investigate our history, our past things, to get rid of legends and create actual authentic pieces of information that would explain our history and where we were and what we should intentionally be. And that's the same thing with each one of the lodges of research has a purpose. Lodge of Research that's in Peyton Randolph was purposely done, and it has an intention to study. The lodge in George Washington Lodge of Research in Fredericksburg has a dual purpose, not only to study George Washington, but Scottish Rite influences and the things of all of the cultures that came in that developed the colonial Freemasonry. Same with Peyton Randolph. But I'm not going down to list on there. I'm just saying Civil War Lodge of Research should be the expert when somebody anywhere else wants to find out about something relating to Freemasonry that deals in that time period, 1861 to 1865, that ought to be the place that they could come back and find information on it that's correct. That's not just hearsay and a wives' tale and a story, but is actually correct.
Very good. Appreciate that. Okay, moving on to George Washington. How did your research lodge come to be chartered, and who were some of the significant charter members?
Yes, so I was chartered in 2012, which was perfect timing for me. It's hard to believe it's coming up on 10 years now. So I joined beginning of 2012. That's when I was raised as a Master Mason. I had a deep interest in research. Research lodge, it was almost the first question that came out of my mouth as a new Mason. And Brother Shelby Chandler, who I quickly became friends with, told me of the plans for the new George Washington Lodge of Research, which again was founded they had their dispensation and they formally became a lodge 2012. And I will let Worshipful Shelby talk a little bit about that, since he is actually the charter worshipful master of George Washington Lodge of Research.
Okay, well, thank you. What happened, we got started because of the Payne Randolph Lodge did a wonderful, basically they were at J. Simmons, I think it was 2009, 2008, 2009. And they did, I figured you might know for sure if anybody. It'd be in there, your year's Grand Master, of course, but it was a wonderful display of a colonial degree that they gave at J. Simmons. And one of the things that struck my curiosity was the fact that it was based on English modern. And I realized in history that there was also the ancients and the Scottish, and some of it might have been different. So the goal was to start thinking about what may be different from with all the different variants of Freemasonry during that time. And then slowly, as we started forming it, we decided to focus it under Washington because he was part of a lodge that was Scottish oriented. And then we realized that the influences on him in Masonry had to do with colonial Masonry, military Masonry, and Scottish Masonry. And we decided to broaden that out to focus on those three aspects of Freemasonry that influenced George Washington. And of course, we accept any kind of paper that's Masonic oriented. It could be esoteric, philosophical, it could be more academic, or it can be in relation to the ritual itself. But anything Masonic is accepted, but we wanted to give it focus on those things that influence our namesake.
Very good. Okay. And yeah, just to clarify, because I think what I heard here is someone said Scottish Rite, but actually we meant Scottish Masonry. So the influence is Scottish Masonry. Okay.
Yes, so Scottish Masonry, colonial Masonry, and military Masonry.
Excellent. Okay. Well, you would have enjoyed our paper 2 meetings ago. We had a brother gave a talk on military lodges, which is very interesting. Expanded.
Oh, I have no doubt.
It was very interesting. Okay, moving on to let's see. Oh, Peyton Randolph. Same questions. How did your lodge come to be chartered, and who were some of the charter members, and when was it chartered, of course?
Let's let the man that was the Grand Master answer that question. Most Worshipful Donner. He chartered the lodge. The lodge actually was probably Kent Brinkley, George. I had his name right on top of my head. I lost it now. There was about 5 brethren of Williamsburg Lodge that really had the interest in pursuing the Lodge of Research. Most Worshipful George Kidd had published a book, which quite frankly was just a copy of the minutes of the lodge in Williamsburg in its early inception. And from that, many things could spur off, and you could do a tremendous amount of research and study on the lives of the people that were there and influential in the creation of Freemasonry. And I think that was the impetus behind Peyton Randolph being started. But
and what year was that again? I'm sorry, what year?
Bernie, when were you Grand Master? 2007?
2007.
Okay. And so the focus then, what is the focus of the research at Peyton Randolph? Is there a specific area you're focused on, and has that changed over the years?
Let the Worshipful Master tell you.
Most worshipful, thank you. I'm probably not the best person to ask. I wasn't there at the founding. I didn't get involved with it until about 2012. And generally speaking, it is Freemasonry in the colonial period, presumably in Virginia, but not nailed to that. I myself have delivered papers that specifically do apply to that. Most Worshipful Hodges, in his year as master, asked me to write a paper about a Cabin Point Royal Arch Lodge, one of the list of on the list of the original founding lodges for Grand Lodge. And I found a lot of information in the History of Freemasonry book. I found a lot of information elsewhere. When Dave Burkus was master, he asked me to do a paper on Paul Revere, certainly not a Virginia Mason, but active in the time period in question. And I ended up reading two different biographies of him and writing a multi-page paper that talked about all of the other human sides or aspects of Paul Revere's life, which to me as a history teacher is really the most important point, or important part rather. You can leapfrog from important event to important event and to important event, but what happens in between speaks to the individual. And that's how I try to teach my classes. Most worshipful, how'd I do?
Hey, one thing I would mention, let's talk about Paul Revere, because myth, legend, and correct history is always a situation we're balancing here in doing any kind of research. One of Virginia Lodge of Research's members, Right Worshipful Robert Simpson, did an exhaustive amount of research and paper on how and who actually created the jewel that the Grand Master wears, which has always been accredited to Paul Revere. And in fact, on the back side of it, it has the inscription that it was made by Paul Revere. And yet, Right Worshipful Simpson's research found that it didn't have the notable history that we think that it does. Keith Henman might want to comment on that because he's laughing about it, and I understand that. But the truth of the matter is, sometimes we don't want to let go of legends. We want to hold on to them. And actual truth needs to be sought. And that's where the Research Lodge needs to come in. And the Virginia Research Lodge should, unless proven differently by other researchers, should support the research that's proposed by its members that was supposedly and authentically found to be correct until it's disproven, and not uphold the legends of Freemasonry. Paul Revere is a perfect example of this. You know, one of the things that we never study, because we like to laundry everything into clean baskets, we never study what really went wrong, what conflicts existed between the brethren that is sworn to be each other's backside helpers, and how there was pitting of problems going on. I mean, a perfect example of this, which doesn't get spoken about much, is how do two good brothers, Truman and MacArthur, have such dipole different opinions and have such clashing problems that it becomes a national envy almost. So, those are just things. But Keith, what do you got to think about that?
I remember that discussion at at the Virginia Research Lodge, and A. Douglas Smith was involved. But I was such a young member, I don't remember the specifics. But I do remember other things that have happened at Virginia Research Lodge, and one that I would love to know more about was, did John Marshall renounce Freemasonry before his death?
That's a good point.
And the conclusion they came to was, I believe, if I remember correctly, that since he was buried with Masonic honors, that he did not.
All right. Just to round out this round of the origins, Keith, Virginia Research Lodge, number 1777. How did we? When were we chartered? How did we come to be chartered? And who were some of the charter members?
Okay. It was actually as a result of a discussion in 1949 between the Grand Master A. Douglas Smith Jr. and the Grand Junior Deacon Hugh M. Reed, another fine member from Cherrydale Lodge. And what they did, they submitted a resolution to Grand Lodge. Let me see, I've got it right here. And in that resolution, they put the purpose down as to investigate, collect, and collate such historical data appertaining to ancient craft masonry in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Now, some of the charter members were James Noah Hillman, C. Vernon Eddy, Thomas Hooper, A. Douglas Smith Jr., Archer B. Gay, Carl Frank Wood, Frost Herndon, William Mosley Brown. These names are all prominent names of Virginia Freemasons. Harold Stevenson, Blair Vi, Earl C. Lanningham, W.R. Weisiger, Hugh Reed, William T. Buckner, and there are a few others, but I've just tried to mention some of the more prominent ones that at least I've heard of. And the first master, he was James Noah Hillman, served from 1950 to 1958, followed by William Mosley Brown, followed by Hugh Reed, and then John Power Stokes, and then A. Douglas Smith. So that's an impressive list.
I want to mention, in fact, if I could ask Brother Hodges, maybe could speak to this and one of the others. There was James Noah Hillman. Anyone who has been master of a lodge knows the name James Noah Hillman. He was Grand Master, and they created the Hillman Award. The entire purpose of it, and this is all the Virginia Masons already know what I'm going to say, but it's more for other brothers from other places attending. The Hillman Award is basically a checklist that the master is expected to comply with. You basically fill out the form, and then at the end of the year, you submit this form to the Grand Lodge to be nominated or to see if you qualify to be given the Hillman Award. And typically, if you check all the boxes, you get the award. It's meant to be something where it's to push the lodge to a higher standard of excellence. It basically gives you a blueprint. And I give advice when I rarely get the chance to give advice to a new officer. I say, look, go for the Hillman. I don't care if you don't have a single ritualist in your lodge who can learn a lecture this year. Not every lodge has a man who's willing to step up and learn a new lecture and give it. That's not going to happen. I don't care if you get the award or not. If you're planning your term as master, take the Hillman, go through it, try and meet everything that's in the Hillman during your year. You will have a much better year. Whether you bother to submit it to your district deputy to go for the award or not, it doesn't mean anything. It's important that you try because it pushes you to make your lodge more well-rounded in every aspect of masonry. And if you only meet half the criteria, you're going to have a better year. So I've known about the Hillman since the 90s when I was master the first time. But there was a research lodge named after him in the western part of the state, which then went away around the time I started building the website for Virginia Research about 10 years ago. And I'm like pulling information together and everything. I mentioned the Hillman Research Lodge because I assumed it still existed. And I think it was Alan Atkins who said, well, they actually closed down a few years back. I hadn't even known they got out of existence. So if any of y'all can give a little light on what the James Noah Hillman Lodge was about, what its purpose was, and I guess why they went away. I'd like to share.
I instituted that lodge in 2009 with the sole purpose of what I said earlier, researching Freemasonry and its effects and how it developed in Southwest Virginia. One of the first things that they studied were remnants and relics that they found of George Washington's involvement in that area of the country. They had lodges that had historical items that had been kept through perpetuity in their vaults, and they needed to be exposed so that the brethren could understand what they had and value it. Now, the same thing goes with what your comments are on the Hillman Award. The Hillman Award is not just a checklist to put a red badge of courage on our foreheads of life. The Hillman Award is an accomplishment to know that you actually have organized, managed, and run your lodge in a suitable way to advance it, to enrich the brethren, and to make sure that Freemasonry continues. And when we don't do that, when we just casual-faire approach the management of our lodges, and we end up falling down the path of less and less and less quality of Freemasonry that's exemplified, known, and lived, we end up having Freemasonry go by the wayside. And that's what happened, I think, in Southwest Virginia. There weren't enough people that wanted to become involved. The idea was 4 meetings a year, 4 locations throughout Southwest Virginia. So somebody in that geographic area of where the lodge was going to meet could be affected by it. But what it turned out to be was, I hate to say, is just one more meeting on a Saturday for them to pull out.
Most forceful?
Yeah.
One time you told me, you explained to a lot of us that that the Hillman Award ensures viability of a lodge. If you follow it, you were likely to remain a viable and growing lodge in doing such.
Thank you. I'm glad I said that.
Yeah.
What was your question? What was your question in relation? Was it just in relation?
Well, I just wanted to know about, I think you covered the question, sir. It just, I thought it deserved mentioning because it only existed for what, not even 10 years then, and fell by the wayside.
Yeah, that's a shame. But you know, when you have a lodge who has one person in particular that's the driving force in that lodge, and then things in life happen to drain them away and take them of a greater interest somewhere else, and they don't have somebody to step up to the plate, that's usually what happens.
Very true. I think that's something, honestly, and I'll put this out to the group. This is a little off topic, but if you can figure out a way, see how do I concisely put this? I need to find a way. We need to find a way to take, there are those of us who are very active in Masonry. And I was speaking to Shelby shortly before this meeting started. I approached all of you, and thankfully all of you are here, and about half again as many were going to make an effort to be here, but they already had conflicts and they couldn't be here. Even though I picked the day with no conflicts that I could see a month ago, conflicts come out of the woodwork. So if you want to get anything done in Masonry, you reach out to the brothers who are already doing everything because they will get the job done. The trouble is when you reach out to people like Shelby, like Brian, like several, Brother Joy, Mark, several people I see in this room. When you reach out to those very busy people who are very good at getting stuff done, guess what? They've got 3 other meetings that day and they've got to figure out which one they're going to attend because we're all involved in everything. We're in all the appendant bodies and we're active in all of them. So that's the problem. I think the one thing that would fix Masonry is we could find a way to break out of this mold of these same 5 guys are going to keep the valley going or the lodge going or the chapter going, and find a way to reach all of the newer members and even some of the older members and get the spark lit in them so they will take up the mantle. So they will take up and they see what we do and go, you're doing so much. I can't believe, how are you getting all this done? But how do I get from that point of, yes, I see you're doing a lot. I'm impressed. You're doing all of this here. I really like what you're doing. You're making me excited to come to lodge. How do I get them to the next step of, I need to step in and try and do what you're doing and take some of the load off of you. So Masonry continues to grow and spread. And it's not on a handful of us. We had a member of our valley died a few years ago. He was a prominent part in all 5 of the mandatory degrees. So when he died, and we got sick actually before he stopped coming for several years, he left a serious gap in every one of those degree teams because you rely on that one man to do it, you know, for, oh, he's so good. He does the temple scene in 30 seconds. I took it over from him. If I can't be at a reunion, we're not having a temple scene. So how do you get people to step up and take on these roles and try and do at least some of what you're currently doing so that they're there when they need to step in? And it's not just a small group of us doing all the work. This is true everywhere in Masonry. I mean, if we, I'm not asking for an answer right here. I'm just saying that's a problem we have. We need to find a way to inspire younger. I'll say, just pick Brother Parrish, guy coming along. You need to pick up the reins and do what Shelby's doing. You need to be able to do that. If we can inspire you to be the next Shelby, then we've done our job. It's not enough to bring a man into Masonry. You need to make him get, those of us who have that spark in us to keep going no matter what, find a way to light that spark in him and get him charged up and active. And for all I know, John, you do 10 times more than I do. I don't know. I'm just picking on you because you look younger than me. But you know what I'm saying is get the next guy to come in to be active and take part. We have to find a way to do that. I mean, the guys who come for these Zoom meetings are the ones who are interested in Masonry, the ones who write to me all the time, who post on Facebook all the time, the ones who are constantly asking questions, guys like Joe Martinez, who are just knee deep in it. They want to do, they're doing more. We need to spread that. We need to find what's in our blood and give an injection to these other guys and get them fired up about Masonry, because it leads to burnout. It really does. And it leads to being overextended, you know? So any ideas?
Chris,
I'll come up. Yeah, go ahead.
I have some additional information about Southwest Virginia.
Yes.
At the closing of Grand Lodge in November, the new district deputy for District 40 came up to me and said, there is considerable interest in the Blacksburg area to start a research lodge again, because it's too far to go to Richmond. It's too far to come to Williamsburg. And so last Saturday, my wife and I drove out there, and we spent a good chunk of the day, something in excess of 4 hours, and the drive was 4 hours, speaking with 15 or more members of area lodges. And they have got the bit in their mouth and they are running with it. And I am in distinct hopes of seeing a petition to be forwarded to Grand Lodge well before our annual communication.
You have a good brother from Hunter Lodge here. Let's see what he thinks.
Well, Michael Berg is the district deputy. Who
was it that signed on and said they were from Hunter Lodge?
That was William C. and myself.
Okay. What do y'all think about that?
William, are you able to unmute? He might not be able to. In any case, we're pretty excited about it. It's kind of a new concept to me. William was doing quite a bit of research with Mike Berg, and it sounded fascinating to me as well. So I've kind of joined in as well. Actually, I think Will is joining with audio right now, but we're pretty excited about it, trying to figure out what sort of topics we might focus on, get some more resources together. Brian was very helpful when he came out to the lodge and gave us a ton of information. Very enlightening.
Very good. I meant to answer this earlier. People were putting in the chat. Someone asked Brother Oliveras asked, can you list all of the dates, meetings, and times? I have all of that on the lodge website that I posted, Virginia, researchlodge.org. And by the way, we are researchlodge.com. I was able to pick that up for a song, so I added that, but we're still .org, but we're also .com now because that became available. I list all of the research lodges as well as the research chapter and their AMD councils that I could identify. And I'm trying to get papers from them. But I list at least the formula of when they meet. I don't go in every year and update it. I try to. I think I meant to go do it at least for the lodges. Virginia Research, I do list our meetings in a calendar because they do change year to year. And I do make an effort to put them in every year for the other research lodges. So you can go there. I don't know how many people are taking use of that, but I will try and go in there and at least get the actual dates. But if you go to our website, when it's back up after maintenance this weekend, bad timing, that you can go and see like the 5th Saturday of every month for A. Douglas Smith. So if there's a 5th Saturday, they're meeting. So that's something you have to work out yourself some. But I do have all of their addresses and everything listed on our website. And I would encourage, if you all are welcome to, I can say Virginia Research has, I think, the most active Facebook group. I think 4 of us have a Facebook presence. 4 of us have a website. I think maybe all 5 do, but one's not kept current. But you're more than welcome to post on our group to reach more Masons and say, hey, we have a meeting coming up next month. I definitely more than happy, since I think we have a louder and larger forum than the others, that you're more than welcome to come to our group and promote your activities for your research bodies if you want to reach more people. We're always happy to share. I make a point of sharing papers to y'all's group, and so let's use social media. But if I can help y'all promote. And yes, Patrick asked about the Civil War papers. They are expected to have a Masonic flavor to them, correct, Brother Martinez? That they should have something to do with Masonry, not just the Civil War. Is that correct?
The early papers were kind of a blend, and so the later papers have kind of gone more Masonic. It was just if you look at the early papers, you can definitely see the transition between the paperwork.
Okay. I imagine you
a lot of
can't,
material
if you
there.
want a paper at all, then a Civil War paper is better than none at all, I suppose, if you couldn't find a Masonic tie-in. I'm sorry, Brother Corso.
There's a lot of material there.
Oh, so she'll be, okay. All right, moving on with the questions. We just got through the first section. And by the way, I will keep this meeting going as long as you all are willing to put up with it. We have had some meetings that run well past noon. So until people start dropping off, I'm just going to keep asking questions. I'm going to pick and choose from here for the article. I just want to get some good answers. But I don't think I'll be able to ask every single question of everybody. We kind of covered what's unique about a research lodge. So I'm just going to throw this out for the group. If any one of you wants to answer rather than go to you individually, this may be faster. Do any of you have Zoom meetings? Clearly, Virginia Research Lodge does, and because of COVID, we started it. Do any of you have regular Zoom meetings?
We had Zoom meetings in Peyton Randolph during the 2020 and the COVID time period. Recall 2, if I remember correctly, although I have so many meetings like this that do occur. I actually think the Masonic View program that's being initiated right now has every great potential in years to come to give us a secure venue for creating more and more opportunities for Zoom meetings to be done.
Oh, very good.
Not that I like the isolation aspect. I do like to come together as brethren, but I think that the travel, the busyness of life as we know it, the availability of this medium to occur oftentimes, not just during the 10 to 11 o'clock time period on Saturday morning, is beneficial.
I know A. Douglas Smith has hosted several of their actual meetings. They meet, and Brother Andy, they meet and actually broadcast during their meeting after they do the opening. Is that correct?
Yeah, so in general, as far as conducting it regularly, that's still up in the air depending on the topic that we're talking about. But in general, what we try to do is we'll open a Master Mason Lodge, call down or go to refreshment, present an open paper, and then call back on to Master Mason's Lodge. We'll shut down the Zoom meeting, call back on to a Master Mason's Lodge and close out, but or conduct business or whatever we can't do or need to do in a tiled environment. But yeah, it's kind of been one of the better parts of COVID is discovering that we can use this technology to reach out to a broader audience. We've had brothers who've been members who've been geographically separated, who've been able to re-engage with the lodge. And we've been able to basically increase our online presence, which I think has been very beneficial and probably would not have been discovered or extremely delayed if it weren't for the forcing factor of COVID. So we've really benefited from it, trying to do things that are more regular and consistent to kind of generate that routine. But it's really been a benefit to us.
Now, have you only met for your stateds then? You haven't had any special ones?
We've had a couple special meetings towards the beginning of the pandemic where we did a special like off schedule Saturday meeting or whatnot, but we haven't done anything regular yet.
Okay. Well, I know
that's a goal, but that is a goal.
Hey, Chris, in 2009, I asked the research lodges to come together and to compile things, even have a joint meeting of 4 research lodges at that time so that we could do exactly what you're doing. But it wouldn't have been because Zoom wasn't in existence then. It wouldn't have been like this. But this is a perfect thing. I'll compliment you for doing what you're doing. In 2012, Peyton Randolph, Right Worshipful, then Worshipful Jerry Fry did a program, and we videotaped his program that he presented from the podium, not presenting any of the lodge situation itself, but just the program, in hopes that we would create a web page and put that on, that make it available for lodges to use as a program that they might show. And I think therein lies the situation, that you could expand what the research lodges are doing if we had that sort of opportunity for them to have something they could pull up, show it in their lodges as a program, a video program for educational purposes, because a lot of the lodges really do suffer from having good quality research, and I mean good quality programs. I'll just throw that out you.
What we've done with Virginia Research is where I got the idea is because of COVID in 2020, I was scheduled to be Dennis's speaker in August, and I was looking forward to it because I'd been a member for a long time and hadn't been active in my research lodge, and I was persuaded to go back in as junior deacon for Dennis Haas for his year in 2020. And I was going to be the speaker in August, and I was all excited about it. And then because of COVID, it's like put off. And then finally it's like, well, we're not going to be able to meet in August. And I was kind of upset. And I said, well, can we, we can't have a stated meeting. Could we do a Zoom meeting? And so we had what I called an unstated meeting, because it was unstated that we can't open a lodge. So that's the joke, and I've run with it for 2 years. But we met every single week for about 6 months, I think. And then I took a break, and that break of a week or two turned into about 3 or 4 months. And then I got started again. So we've had these off and on for about 2 years. But these, as you see the format, there's no ritual. We're not opening. We're not tiling. I expect it to be just Masons present, but I'm really not strict. I've had 1 or 2 women pop in here, widows, it seems, of Masons who were invited by someone to watch the speaker. So I'm not strict. I'm not bothering to try and vet anyone. But I think this format has worked really well because it's very casual.
May I say something to that?
I'm sorry?
I'd like to say something to that, because you've been very gracious, and the Virginia Lodge Research has been very gracious in sharing that airtime for other research lodges. You've invited me to speak, and I have done so. And the end result of that was I was able to present some of our own research papers over the pond on a couple occasions, such as Freemasonry and the French Resistance. So it's been a wonderful experience. You've done an admirable job of not only keeping that alive, but being gracious with sharing that with other research lodges. And I want to thank you for that.
Oh, absolutely. But I appreciate it. Believe me, I do not want this to be solely our show. It feels enough my show as it is. I've told Keith that more than once. It's like, if I'm not here, we don't meet. So I've tried to inspire, and Brother Rooster, who has joined us, our worship master's here. He came in during the talk, so good to have you here. I've tried to inspire more of the members of Virginia Research to get active and take part. But this is its own unique animal. We're under the banner of Virginia Research, but quite honestly, it's its own thing. We have Brian, and I saw there he is. Brother Hughes is one of our regulars. We have quite a few brothers from across the pond who attend, a bunch of Canadian brothers who attend, and it's great. It's kind of got its own flavor. And I try to find speakers mostly from Facebook. I go and see people who are talking elsewhere. I managed to get Brother Moises Gomez. Team Badger came and gave a talk on Freemasonry in Cuba, and that was one of our most well attended. So I've absolutely opened this up. I just feel like I'm a booking agent, because all I'm doing.
You have a great platform.
Yes, and just get as many people as I can from anywhere in Masonry to give a talk. And one of the coolest things, I'll just say this before we get back to the panel here. One of the neatest things I came up with, because I wanted to do a different format. Clearly, this is a panel discussion. It's different. I'm used to, the original idea was do it like a lodge. I'm going to open, say hello to everybody. Shelby's going to give a paper. He gives his paper just like he would in a lodge. And then we have Q&A, probably more Q&A you would get in a lodge setting. And that's our meeting. But what I've said is, I keep thinking, how can I do things differently? How can I play with this platform, try different things? And one of the coolest things I found is these panel discussions. I invited 3 brothers from Brazil, was our first one. And they're just people that I knew who signed up for the research papers. And I gather a little bit of metrics from everybody, what lodge do you belong to and so on. And then I can organize that by country. So I just looked and I said, well, I've got 3 guys from Brazil. I invited all 3 to be on my panel, and they came and talked. I couldn't have planned this. Every one of them belongs to a different orient in Brazil. They were all under different grand lodges or grand bodies. But I basically just asked them questions about Masonry in Brazil and to contrast it to Virginia and by extension, American Masonry and kind of what's the same, what's different. Learned a lot of things. And I've done about 4 or 5 of those. And I just pick a different country, get at least 3 guys to come on and they talk about what's going on in their country. And it's really neat. And that's not something I've seen anywhere, but it's really kind of cool. And it's not your standard paper, but it's a lot of fun. And it kind of exposes all of us to Masonry in other parts of the world and see where we're similar and how things are just a little bit different. But that's been very, it's been a blessing to be able to do this. And I want to keep doing it for as long as I can. So I'm glad that everybody's getting so much out of it. Okay, let me skip on to, I'm going to ask every of the research lodges to chime in. In fact, we have some here, but are there grand officers or past grand masters who are active in your research lodge? I'll just go around the room. A. Douglas Smith, do you have regular attendees who are current grand officers or past grands who are regulars?
Yes. So Most Worshipful Hershey is active. Most Worshipful Gallaudet is also a member, and we have Right Worshipful Don Straley, the Deputy Grand Master, is also an active member of our lodge.
Okay. Civil War.
Yes, we have 2 past district deputy grand masters that are very active in the line. One of them's our chaplain ritualist. The other one's the current junior warden, I do believe. And then we have about 10 past grand masters that are pretty active from actually different jurisdictions and states. So.
Oh, interesting. George Washington.
Yeah, we don't have any that actually meets at the stated often. But we do have, I do always get information from them that either they couldn't make it or that they are paying attention whenever we put out any kind of dispatch. But we have members such as Alan Atkins, most worshipful Alan Atkins, most worshipful Jeff Hodges. Most worshipful Don Roby, he's not been around of late, and his health is the reason, of course, for quite a while. We had most worshipful William Rohr. We have quite a few, but for the most part, they don't come to the stated meetings. And we've always tried to downplay our stated meetings. One of the downside to that is we have less in attendance, and that's something that we've been trying to make an adjustment to. We've always thought to try to do everything outside of it and then do what you had to do for business inside the business, but that don't always work so well. We've modified that a few years ago to try to, and it's becoming more. We have more and more in attendance as a result.
You say downplay. What do you mean? That you don't have the paper during the meeting?
No, what we wanted to do is we wanted to be in business casual. We wanted to make sure to do any kind of events outside of a stated meeting, and the stated meeting would be used for the presentation and officially turning in and presenting a paper, and of course elections and any kind of other lodge business we had. What we learned from that was that it was better to make sure that you have a good stated meeting just as much as you do any other activity, because you want to keep those brethren coming in.
Well, now the special events, that would be the same day. You'd have the meeting, then the
event, no.
Separate,
not
like
yes and no.
So a separate meeting another day altogether?
Well, for example, one time we had a meeting over at Mount Vernon where we attended one of their events, and that was separate from the stated meeting. In August, we're working it out with Yorktown to have a stated meeting at Yorktown. We got to talk to the deputy about the potential of getting a dispensation for that, and I have apprised them of that. But it looks like a paper will be presented at Yorktown Lodge, followed by the battlefield, going to the battlefield. Okay. If that happens, that will happen in August here. We're almost done getting that locked down.
All right. Brother Hodges.
You're also looking at trying to recruit many of our members to participate in what's going on at George Washington National Memorial with Alexandria Washington Lodge. Is that not correct?
What's that?
Shelby, you're actively trying to ask our membership to participate and support the program that's going up to GW Memorial with.
Oh, yes. That's something separate from the Research Lodge, but the Research Lodge should be very much embedded in that as well. The Scottish Symposium, the Scottish Freemasonry in America Symposium is going to be November 4th, 5th, and 6th. And I should plug this. Thank you very much. Basically, a lot of our Scottish brethren will be in Virginia, and on November 4th, they will be in Fredericksburg, where it's going to be a day-long event followed by the official visit of the Grand Master. And then in the 5th and 6th, it will be at the George Washington Masonic National Memorial. And there's a whole itinerary of things that will happen during that time. It's also being supported by the Royal Order of Scotland. So these are events that are coming up right this year, at the end of this year, and I encourage each of you to be part of it. But it will greatly influence maybe a paper that can be printed out by any of these research lodges. And I would strongly encourage you to attend to it. But yeah, right now I'm in the middle of that as well. So thank you very much for that, though.
And I think additional information on that symposium is already on the National Memorial website. So you can just Google search it and you should be able to get some more information on that.
All right, very good.
Yeah, I'll make sure that gets put out to the research lodges.
Brother Hodges, besides you at Peyton Randolph, do you regularly have past grandmasters or Grand Lodge officers or other grand bodies in attendance?
I'm going to defer to the worshipful master of the lodge to respond.
Thank you, Most Worshipful. The only two grandmasters that I am personally aware of is yourself, Most Worshipful Jeff, and Most Worshipful Frank Perdue. If there are others who are members, I haven't perused the rolls, so I wouldn't know. But you two are the ones that I know have been on a pretty regular basis.
Most Worshipful William Earl Rourke Jr. is a member of Peyton Randolph. Most Worshipful Bernie Dungan is a charter member of Peyton Randolph. Unless I'm mistaken, Bernie, you're still on the rolls as a charter member. And that's pretty much the extent of what we have involved. I think Brother Most Worshipful Frank and I have tried to be very active. I know open heart surgery kept me last couple of years from traveling down the highway of life as I had before, but traveling down the highway of life may have contributed to me having open heart surgery. So that's a paradox, isn't it?
Keith, I think you know where I was going with this. You want to talk about?
Well, right now, Virginia Research Lodge, Most Worshipful Brother Dungan is probably the only past grandmaster that's active. And it saddens me so, because I can remember when I first went in back in 1979, you would attend a meeting of Virginia Research Lodge, and there might be 6 or 7 past grandmasters there, along with many other Masonic leaders throughout the state and also in our Richmond area. We'd have a research paper, and to hear the discussion after that research paper was just wonderful. And I miss that so much. I just wish it could return.
Keith, look at the history of Virginia Research Lodge. My goodness, the first 5 masters of that lodge were prolific authors. Mosby Brown has a tremendous amount of books as well as articles that were written. So you had a collection of people that were just personally knowledgeable about stuff that the average guy had really not even touched on.
It was a Research Lodge dream team.
Yeah, well, they were. Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, you are right. You know, I was just also thinking too, and the influence that Alan Roberts had on Virginia Research Lodge. I've always felt when I followed him as the secretary, how unworthy that I was. Now, I could do some of the administrative skills, but I couldn't carry on as far as his knowledge of Freemasonry. He was he was tremendous.
Alan not only had knowledge of Freemasonry, he had connections upon connections. I mean, when I tried to follow up after our Virginia Craftsmen kind of failed off and create the Virginia Traveling Masons, it was off of Alan Roberts' coattails in communicating with the Scottish brethren that had known him personally that allowed me to open the door and take our group over to Scotland and be welcomed just like as if we were longtime friends. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's Freemasonry in its essence.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry,
Well,
I dropped off.
that was my feeling.
Okay. I'm sorry. The one discussion I wanted to hear, and my wife had an issue. I had to drop off for a sec. Yeah, I just wanted to share that when I joined in like 90, when was Cabell our master?
About 95.
95. I know it was before I was master the first time. So it was like 94, 95 when I joined. Okay, now understand this. I'm like senior deacon, junior warden, whatever I was, going to research lodge. A guy named Charlie, I can't remember the brother's name for the life of me, but the guy who brought me in was a member of Ruth Lodge, I think. But he invited me to go to Richmond to go to a research lodge. And I've only been a Mason like, I don't know, 8, 10 years. And I was like all excited. I go in this room and Cabell Cobbs, who I knew was the Grand Master the year before, is sitting in the East. Now, this is the guy who went up to Alexandria, wherever it was, and there was a black man who was like an army colonel who tried to join one of our lodges, and the lodge blackballed him, and Cabell Cobbs showed up and set aside the ballot and brought him in. And that was like groundbreaking. I mean, Cabell Cobbs was one of those past Grand Masters that changed things. You still remember him 20, 30 years down the road. So it was very impressive to me at the time. And I walk in the room and he's sitting in the East. I'm getting to sit in a lodge meeting where a past Grand Master is sitting in the East. And as a young Mason, that blew me away. Okay. I was impressed all to hell. It's like, okay, I'm in the big leagues. I shouldn't even be in here. They're going to kick me out because I don't deserve to be here. But that was part of the awe that put into me about this research lodge, and hearing about Alan Roberts and all of the early heavy hitters who contributed so much. You know, that was a draw for me. And to be able to tell people like, no, I got to go to the meeting, and the past Grand Master sitting there in the East, you know. And I go today, the Grand Commander was there all his year. Brother Steele is the Grand High Priest, was there all his year. We do have several grand officers, senior grand officers from other bodies. We have had at least, who was the one? Our deputy grand master, his name escapes me. Who was it this year? Someone mentioned this. Yeah, he was at one of our meetings. He's made to one of our meetings. But honestly, other than Brother Duggan, I don't see many past grand masters at our meetings anymore. And that was a huge deal to me when I was coming along. And I guess I'm trying to find a way, and I'll put the bug in Mark Hone's ear. I might have mentioned Brother Croto. It's like, how can we encourage our grand officers to get active in our research lodges? Because if they're active, if they're attending, it can only help promote the whole concept of Masonic education in these research bodies, because people will see the past Grand Masters and Grand Officers are active in the research lodges. And then they're promoting it when they go to places. Hey, I was at Civil War Lodge Research, or I was at Virginia Research Lodge last month, and they had an excellent paper. I kind of think our Grand Officers, we need to get back in that habit of having them regularly attend the research lodges and promote them, because they were an integral part of things back when these were all started. So I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know how you persuade a grand officer to do what you want him to do, but I don't know. Maybe some of our past grandmasters here can help us in that effort, but I would like to see more of them active in our research lodges and sports. And hopefully this article will help in that effort as well.
I could touch on that, although I'm reluctant to touch on that because I don't want to offend anybody or to make a statement that would be misperceived as criticism. I think that it depends upon the individuals that are coming through that have been asked to serve in the Grand East as to what their special interests are and how dedicated they are to research, okay? You have had in the past a tremendous amount of interest in those people that were selected to serve the Grand East, okay? And if you don't have that, it's hard to create that after they're in the East or after they've gone out of being Grand Master. Second, I think that it depends upon what the lodge is doing and the pertinence of what the lodge is doing as to whether, I've used this many times and I apologize for using it, whether it's just seen as another Saturday lodge that they feel obligated to attend, or is it something that has great interest and pertinence in program so that they themselves feel enriched by participating in it, okay? And the third thing, I guess, is that you just have to reach out and make sure that lodges of research their importance to the Grand Line are explained. If you ask the Grand Junior Deacon, let's say, at any point in time, if he knew how many Lodge of Researchers there were, you may find he doesn't even know maybe more than one. Okay, so it's those three things. It's the crowd that's coming through, possibly the effectiveness of the programs, and then just the knowledge that they even exist. Okay,
I take your points, and I will say, once it falls out of favor as the thing to do, it's hard to get them back going. If you're the Grand Junior Deacon and the Grand Senior Warden or the Grand Deputy Grand says, "Hey, we're going to a research lodge, you should go," he may get in the habit of going. Once they all stop going, where we are now is getting them back. Brother Hone was helpful in helping me get this straight. He put out the research papers that I've mentioned that most of you all get. I went ahead and added all of the Grandmaster and all of the Grand Officers have an official email that belongs to the title, to the office. So every new Grand Master is going to get whatever email you send to whatever it is. And I won't repeat it here, but so I just added them to the Research Lodge list. So they all get, if you're a Grand Officer, including most of the appointed ones, if they have an official email, they're going to get it that year from me. They're going to get the research paper from me. Now, I haven't had one of them come back to me and say, "Okay, I'm no longer Grand Marshal. Can I keep getting it?" But they're at least getting it while they're in an appointed or elected office. And Mark, I believe, did forward to all of our living past Grandmasters, sent them a copy of the paper and asked them if they want to sign up with their personal emails. And I think some of them already had on there. So we did make at least an effort through the thing we're doing weekly with the research papers is involving them and sending it to them. And periodically we'll talk about what a research lodge is in those papers. So I'm at least informing them.
Chris, I'd like to
I will say this.
on what Most Worshipful Hodges said there, and I think that there's a key point here. If the research lodges are, so I would agree with you that it's difficult when people have fallen out of the practice of being in research or coming to a research lodge to get them back into it. But I think, frankly, what we're talking about here today, the kind of efforts we're talking about here, are part of the key to getting the Grand Lodge back. Because, frankly, it's my opinion now, I'm not speaking for the Grand Lodge, obviously. If the research lodges as a group, as a whole, show the value to Virginia Freemasonry writ large, the Grand Line officers, whether they are personally attached to research or not, will recognize the value that we bring. So Most Worshipful Jeff mentioned like that there are problems, that there are a lot of lodges that don't have good quality presentations. And I think that is a focus area where the research lodges can fit into that niche. If they're providing value to the craft, they should provide value to their members, enjoyment and pleasure to their members. But if they provide value to Virginia Masonry writ large, I can't imagine that the Grand Lodge over time will not affirm that, will not see that and affirm that and support that. And so, frankly, this kind of meeting, the kind of outreach things that people have done are, I think, important to reestablishing that. So thanks for the opportunity.
Okay.
I will say this.
Go ahead.
Can I say this real quick?
Yes.
The research district, the establishment of the research district has done much to give us a lot of focus on research lodges. It gave us a representative at Grand Lodge, but more important is like events like this would probably not be happening as not as in depth with all the research lodges as it probably would had it been beforehand, where we were all separated to different districts. Furthermore, we're getting more attention. I know I'm part of the Virginia Masonic University, and there's already discussions about bringing in the research lodges, talking with the district deputy at some point later in the near future, talking to the district deputy about bringing in some of those papers so they can act as lesson plans as well, and material that can be added to the research to the university should they be agreeable to it.
Okay.
So that's in the future though. So.
And I'm not going to get through half of these questions. I think so. I'm trying to pick and choose the best ones to ask. Should a research lodge meet in different locations during the year? Now we already know. I'm going to leave Civil War out of this because they already do. That's what they do, and clearly it works. It serves their purpose. But should a research lodge, like say A. Douglas or Virginia Research, should we meet in different locations in order? Because I'll say for me, I live in Virginia Beach. It's a schlep of about an hour, maybe hour and a half, depending on traffic, to get to Richmond. If there's any state troopers present, it clearly takes more than an hour to go that 80 some miles. But point is, for me to go to Richmond has been a difficulty in the past, and I imagine guys in other parts of the state it's even harder to get to Richmond. So, is there value in saying a research lodge is we're going to go and make an effort to go meet, say, in Hampton Roads one time during the year, in Northern Virginia one time during the year, in Charlottesville one time during the year, Western Virginia, just to give people who would not normally drive to Richmond a chance to come out and attend. So I'm going to go around and just ask, do you think would it be a good idea to try meeting in other locations during the year, or have you done that, or is that a good or a bad idea? Andy?
I think the answer, at least from our perspective at A. Douglas Smith, is it depends. I think right now, as far as the grand jurisdiction, we have 5 lodges. One of them travels around. The Civil War Lodge does a pretty good job of getting around. But I think as long as with the intent of preserving Masonic history, preserving our Masonic traditions and whatnot, I think there's enough that people have access to research lodges, at least from where we're sitting here. So I think it depends. I think there's some merit in going to places and doing maybe a call communication or something along those lines at another lodge to kind of spread the diversity out a little bit. But overall, I think it's logistically tricky. I think from A. Douglas Smith's perspective and from the type of research and the type of stuff that we do, there's really not too much benefit to it unless we can apply a certain paper to a different lodge. Like if we're doing a project on a certain situation, it might be good for us to travel. But in general, as a matter of routine, I think it just depends on the situation, depends how many lodges we have in the state and how much access the brethren can get to basically a research, I don't say a facility, but a research institution.
All right. Brother Parrish, George Washington, what do you think?
I've got plenty to say here because I think there's a huge value in switching up locations once or twice a year. Because I remember when I first came in, we meet at Fredericksburg, but as Worshipful Shelby said, we've taken the lodge up to Mount Vernon. We have we have had other lodges in Northern Virginia host us. And I think not only does that allow that host lodge to experience a research lodge, it makes it exciting because a lot of us go to the same location, 4 times a year, every Saturday morning or on Saturday mornings, we'll meet at the same location. But switching up, like our trip to Yorktown, it brings an incredible amount of excitement because, we have tours of the battlefield lined up, research specific to the Battle of Yorktown, seeing lodges in Yorktown. Those are new experiences for a lot of the members of our research lodge. And we're opening up that invitation to Blue Lodge groups. And I think there's already a lot of excitement built around it. And I think we're going to have huge benefits from opening the lodge up. But I also did want to thank you, Worshipful Douglas, for what you did. I'm going to have to leave soon. I have a Eastern Star installation to attend. But I want to thank everyone for having this event today.
Thank you. All right.
I want to tell you an opinion on that.
Please.
This is just my opinion. I think that the Worshipful Master rules and governs his lodge based on the Methodical Digest, and I see no reason why that the Worshipful Master, if his program was fitting and the brethren that were members of that lodge also saw the validity in moving the lodge to a different location so that it explained the program more easily or it advanced the educational aspect of the lodge to brethren that wouldn't be normally coming out to the lodge wherever they might be, I think that's fine. We moved Peyton Randolph Lodge of Research to Yorktown once. We saw nothing different in the numbers of people that really attended. Maybe 2 or 3 from Yorktown Lodge showed up that Saturday. But we've also seen it die off and attendance at Williamsburg Lodge. Okay. So again, I go back to the fact that what's your program? What are you trying to show, demonstrate, and or support? And does moving to that location do that? I think that's validity in what you're trying to call.
That's what I'm looking for. Is there value in it? Keith, you want to weigh in? Should we on occasion visit it elsewhere? Mainly, to me, it's, I'm sorry, to me, it's mainly to interest other Masons who wouldn't normally go to Richmond is kind of how I see it, and get them inspired to come out. But
well, to Virginia, as far as Virginia Research Lodge, if you look at our history, on numerous occasions in the first 35 years, we would meet in different places, whether it was Norfolk, Fredericksburg, Williamsburg, Lexington, Virginia, different locations here in the Richmond area. And that sort of has stopped now. And, you know, I really have no problem if the master would like to go somewhere else. But my main concern here at Virginia Research Lodge is we are not attracting the members, the Masons here from the Richmond area. And in fact, our Masters and Wardens Association several years ago moved that meeting to conflict with Virginia Research Lodge. Now that saddens me. And so I think we have an issue at Virginia Research Lodge. How are we going to attract more Richmond area Masons?
Well,
I think
the issue of that has everything to do with what does a Mason perceive as the need for a research lodge. If the Mason in your area doesn't see that it's a need, he's not going to take time away from mowing the grass to come out and go. If he does see a need for it, he'll attend. And that's why you see people from out of town. I would concur that we probably have at Peyton Randolph more than half of the people that show up in Williamsburg come at a distance that they have to drive at least 40 minutes to get to the lodge and not just 2 minutes from home. Okay. I don't know that there's a solution to that problem. I mean, you can't make a horse suck water up off the trough, you know?
I think, Keith, if I may, what's unique about, well, I'll say for both Virginia Research and A. Douglas Smith. Okay. There is currently no research lodge in Norfolk. There was an attempt at one that did not last long, but there are a lot of Masons in Norfolk who are interested in Masonic research and education. Williamsburg Lodge meets in Williamsburg. There may be a few other lodges close by, but you know, Fredericksburg Lodge meets in Fredericksburg. The nearest one is now, well, I think they're Stafford now. They were Frank Moncure, but there's basically only like 1 or 2 lodges in that immediate area. A. Douglas Smith meets in Alexandria, where there's a whole bunch of lodges in the nearby cities. We meet in Richmond, where there's a whole bunch of lodges in the city. And you would think we would attract local Masons because it's a short drive. There's a lot more Masons close to Virginia Research and close to A. Douglas Smith, as opposed to any of the others, just because geographically where it is. But we're not drawing them.
Can I ask you something, Chris?
Yeah.
Chris, you said you're not drawing it down there. 2014, there was dispensation granted for a lodge to be formed at Ocean View Lodge.
Yes.
Sam Welty and Jerry Fry, I don't remember how many others were really the impetus behind this. It spurred off of Peyton Randolph's use of a table lodge. And the creation of that lodge was put in place. Has that totally gone by the wayside and it doesn't exist at all now?
I really.
That is correct.
Yeah, I didn't want to delve into it, but yeah, they've turned in their charter.
Okay, you made a comment that made me think Ocean View hadn't turned in its charter.
No.
Okay,
it was the research lodge that was met at Ocean View was called Quadrivium, number 357, and it closed because of a disagreement on the interpretation of what constituted a table lodge and a stated meeting. And without getting into specific politics. I'll leave it at that. And since Grand Lodge has a larger opinion than individual lodges, Quadrivium Lodge did not win that discussion. Right Rocheville was part and parcel of both, not the creation, but the demise, if you will, of that, and very articulately carried the message from Grand Lodge, but changed in no minds at Quadrivium, essentially. Harkening back to the earlier discussion of Peyton Randolph going to Yorktown, I delivered the paper then at that meeting, and it was the paper was on Freemasons at the Battle of Yorktown, and I had access to materials from the CW library, courtesy of a member of employee for CW who was a member of Peyton Randolph, whose name absolutely escapes me.
Ken Gerhardt helped you, didn't he?
Yes, that was it. And provided great historical information. And so it was really, hey, this guy, that guy, this general, that general, and so it became a kind of a who's who with a couple of surprise ending pieces in it. Just because I got to find a hook as a history guy. It's important to me to be able to find something that people can walk away with as a something that makes them remember, hey, I remember that because he said this, and that helps them remember all the other pieces that I want them to remember.
Hey, Chris, you made a comment about a research lodge not existing in Norfolk.
Correct.
The only reason why a research lodge doesn't exist in Norfolk is because people down there haven't pulled their minds together to create one.
This is true.
If you want, for instance, not only is the establishment of English Freemasonry better traced back right to Norfolk itself, but you have the impact of the Filipino American existence of Freemasonry, and then tracing that back to how Freemasonry actually developed and prospered in the Philippines and came over here too. You have the establishment of Freemasonry's effect on development of the Industrial Revolution, and that major port and parcel of Norfolk being the borough of Virginia, which was the greatest impact when that actually came about in the county, in the colony. Now, you got a lot that can be researched, and you have a lot of people down there. So I just ask you to consider, if that's the case and you have a desire, why don't you promote the idea amongst your brethren in 35 to begin with, and try and get 20 people that want to create a lodge of research and create a lodge of research. We can create lodges of research all year long, every year that we exist, as long as they thrive. If they don't thrive because there's a lack of interest, they'll die. But if you know that it should be, and I compliment you on that fact, it should be. I thought Southwest should be. I think that there should be a lodge of research everywhere where there's an interest.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Speaking for me personally, I have strong ties to Virginia Research because I've been a member so long, and I'd rather support that. To be honest, most of my brothers at Ocean View are very active in Peyton Randolph. You listed several of them, and they worked on establishing Quadrivium local. I can't get them interested in driving to Richmond to go to Virginia Research. I think Brother Ralph Clark gave a talk one time, but I have ties. I'm more interested in Virginia Research personally than Peyton Randolph, even though it's closer, because my history is with them. And I want to support that because that's the one that I've been working with all this time. Probably at some point, I may well work on establishing one down here. If it falls to me to build one, I might. I'm trying to find ways to get Masons all over Virginia interested in education and getting them into the research lodges, which bring up a valid point. Why don't we just start one? But I think there is an interest down here.
Okay. Just like I've explained many times to Peyton Randolph lodge members, a spark of excitement can occur if you have an idea and you just put yourself out there on the limb to find two other people that do the same, and you could go and ask the worshipful masters in some of the lodges just to give you an opportunity to make a presentation of some description. and talk about the development of research lodges and their impact on Freemasonry. It's not their existence, it's the impact that research lodges have and should have on the development and continuation of Freemasonry that we're talking about here, okay? It's not the having the 5, 10, 15, or 35 people come out on any time that you have a meeting. It's the impact that we really ought to be talking about, because the impact is going to drive members that find Freemasonry exciting and don't really have enough to tantalize them to really become involved in the quarry as much as we'd like to. But then they find something sparks an interest, boom, next thing you know, we've got guys that are excited about something and they develop it and go further. You just are a perfect example of that right here in this development of this program that you're doing, okay? But my point is that if you think that it's something that would be worthy down in Norfolk, doesn't mean you have to participate, doesn't mean you have to do. It just means you got to share that idea with somebody that might, right? And I'm very certain our district deputy would be more than pleased to be able to have, in the 3 years that he's going to be district deputy of the research lodges, on his tenure, the development of 3 research lodges. Am I not
Yes, I
correct?
would.
I think you've been tasked there, Brian. You've been tasked.
Hope springs eternal in the human breast.
I will say this, and again, honestly, we like to lean on COVID as an excuse, but it is a valid excuse. I had, I think, 4 different speaking engagements lined up in the spring and summer of 2020, because I had the time to finally get active again and start going out and giving papers. And once you start going out and presenting, you enjoy it, and you're basically kind of selling yourself. I know we don't get paid to do this, but it's kind of like you're your own PR department. I go to a lodge meeting, it's like, well, have you got any education speakers this year? I'd love to come to you. Your master this year? I'd love to come out and give a talk. And I had about 4 different papers or 4 different events lined up, and all of them got canceled because of COVID. So I was getting back in the habit of going out to lodges. But when I speak in a lodge, I don't mention Ocean View. I say, I'm here as a member of Virginia Research Lodge. So I promote it when I can. And we encourage our members who go and give talks, and I assume the rest of you do this as well. When you give a talk in some lodge, do it on behalf of your research lodge, and then make sure that the secretary knows about it, so the district deputy gets notified that we're giving these talks. That's one way to promote the research lodge. And I will say something briefly at the start about what a research lodge is. So, independent of a master making the effort to schedule a meeting somewhere else in the state, our individual members and officers can go out and give talks and do the little evangelizing about research lodges and give a paper somewhere and mention that you're part of a research lodge. So I think that's one more way we can gin up interest out there. And that could well lead to.
Brother Chris.
Yeah.
Brother Chris, one of the things that I try to push back about 5 years ago, before there was a research district, was the idea of possibly getting together all the research lodges, have them present something about themselves, and have some kind of symposium that could have been hosted by, like, the Patriot Lodge, which is an academic lodge, and have all the research lodges come together and have a symposium of some sort, or either or an event that's outside of a stated meeting where you can actually invite as many people as you want and do what we're doing right here, just talking about our research lodges and what we do, and give them a little taste of some of the papers that we have.
Here's what I suggest.
It never went through.
Here's what I suggest you do. Sometimes it's just nice to go in the back door to the kitchen, okay? And instead of going like what we're doing, take the Grand Lodge of Researches, 2 papers from each one. Somebody agrees to just videotape. You take the file, you send all the files to Brian. He puts them on thumb drives, okay? I can tell you Peyton Randolph Lodge of Research has the funding to be able to underwrite a bunch of thumb drives. I'm sure the rest of you can too. You take the thumb drives and you come to Grand Lodge, and with the graces of the Grand Master, you ask him to have an opportunity for the Grand Secretary to just ask for a time after convening Grand Lodge and going to refreshment, that all the senior wardens meet with the district deputy of the Lodge of Research. You shake their hands, you greet them, you get to know them, you give them a thumb drive. Brother, on this thumb drive, we have 12 programs that we ask you to consider using in your time or to share with the brethren that follow you in line to share these programs. On each one of those programs, make none of them more than 5 minutes, 10 at the most. At the tail end of every one of them, for more information on how to participate or even put a lodge of research in your area, contact and put its name on there, okay? Now, I will guarantee you, like God made little green apples, if you do this, it takes the logistics to do it, but if you do this and you make the senior deacon who's frying his eggs right now worried about what kind of programs, the senior warden, worried about what kind of programs he can put out there that are worthy to his brother, you are at his disposal, and make it so all he's got to do is have a presentation laptop to be able to put that thumb drive in and present it. Man, I want to tell you something, you will elevate the image and the effectiveness of Grand Lodge's lodges of research. There's a program I ask you to consider. I've asked that before. I'll ask it again since you got this open. And what you're doing is you're asking, how do we expand lodges of research? I just gave it to you.
Hey, wow. I love that idea. All right, let me say something real quick.
I can't tell you how many times I've had people come up to me when they explain what I'm doing, even at Grand Lodge last year or at the district deputy conference last fall, who come up to me and ask a question that in varying degrees of politeness essentially is, why are you? And the vast majority of them are what Chris so politely referred to as Luddites, who think that research is an evil thing that they did in high school and haven't had to do ever since, thank God. And that's the stone wall that I have seen again and again and again. Now, I have another bully pulpit because in addition to this gig, I'm also the district education officer. And so every one of the worshipful masters comes begging for me to swing through and do my usual DEO program. And more recently, it is, well, because I've got the bully pulpit now, I talk about the research lodges and why I'm the district deputy and why I'm extremely glad to be the district deputy and why I got involved with them in the first place. And I'm seeing little inklings of, a spark flowing through a light bulb filament among various people in the lodges. It's not much, but if we do it regularly, it changes. We need to create a new habit. We need to do something different. Classic line, if you want something you don't have, you've got to do something that you aren't doing.
Ask the Grand Master, come up with a symposium topic, okay? Ask the Grand Master to give you, during whatever breakout session when committees are meeting, when there's dead time and people are walking around the halls looking for something to do, okay? Ask him to allow your Grand lodges of research to come together in a forum like this with a specific topic. Come up with something that everybody can chime in and discuss on, okay? And have the brethren invited to that room to talk and participate, ask questions, and field this same sort of thing you're doing right here at Grand Lodge. And we're missing the boat, man. It's like
that idea.
You got people that are coming down there that want something to do. Let them have something to do.
I would like to
Most
say
Worshipful Gallaudet is a supporter, as is Right Worshipful Straley. I will make the query. See if we can make something happen.
Imagine if over the next decade, just imagine if over the next decade, every Grand Master allowed you to have the little room and 50 guys turned out that didn't know a blessed thing about anything on research, turned out and got a spark of excitement about Freemasonry from this, okay? Wow.
May I say one thing about this? Another thing we're failing to do is a lot of research lodges, such as myself, has brethren in other states as well and other countries. What we have been failing to do is we worry so much about doing the paper. We can promote our own papers with those brethren to say, look, if you present this, that gives you credit as well. We'll make sure you get credit for that as well. And you're taking your papers and you're able to present it in other locations because of that. Like We have Worshipful Drzezinski over at Buffalo. We have Bill Turner down in South Carolina. We have Worshipful Rick Day over in Texas. And they present a paper over there. They get credit. We get attention for that. And other brothers would want to come over and become more involved with us. I know the Civil War Research Lodge does an amazing job with having brethren from other states. And when they become a member of the Research Lodge here, they are Virginia Masons just as much.
When I was away behind the years, Worshipful Master in 1996, didn't know Jack. Okay. They had this group up in Northern Virginia and Maryland that established this video, okay, on current events of what's going on. And they filmed and they showed everything of what was happening. I got so excited about it. I got the lodge to agree to pay $250 a year to participate in this thing, so we would get a videotape so that I could, at one meeting during the quarter, show them this blip of what's going on, the current items and the things that were happening that were exciting in Freemasonry. Another opportunity for research lodges to do the same.
I would like to say, if I can maybe take control of this meeting again, if I can. First of all, I am Virginia Research Lodge is very gracious to repay me the paltry sum of $150 a year to have the cheapest level of Zoom. If you're thinking of getting into Zoom, free Zoom is garbage. But the very first tier of paid Zoom, which is where we are, is $150 a year, and it more than meets all of our requirements. When I have over 200 people every single meeting and I got to worry about going to the next tier, that'll be a problem it's worth having. But honestly, the cheapest level of Zoom that you pay for is what I'm using right now. And I'd recommend it if your lodge is going to have Zoom meetings. So I am more than happy to beat the heck out of this thing. I've used it for Scottish Rite. I've used it for Virginia Research Chapter. I'm more than happy to volunteer this space to any of you all if you want to have in the future. If we're going to have regular meetings of the research bodies, I'm more than happy to bring us all together and be the platform. So just let me know. Number two, Brian, if you do want to pursue this thing about the thumb drives and the speeches, I volunteer my services to read some papers. I have several papers I can read. I can shorten some down to 5 minutes or whatever you want. I'll be more than happy to participate in whatever you want to do on that. I do want to get through the last couple questions because Andy had to leave and we're coming up on 12. So I don't want to go too long. I know some of y'all stay here all day if I let you, but we're down to 18. So while everybody's still mostly paying attention, I'm going to ask this question, and I would like every one of you, and I'm going to email everybody who wasn't here, but you're all on the email list. I still need the answer to some of these questions that I didn't have a chance to ask today because I still need to put an article together. I would still like more input, but there's plenty here, but I don't have time to ask all the questions. So let me ask, I'm going to go around the group real quick. For the average Mason who never attends a research lodge, how does he benefit from it? I'll start with A. Douglas Smith.
But how does an average Mason who does not attend a research lodge benefit from the activities of the research lodge?
Yes.
So I think it kind of parallels to kind of committee of work activities too. There's a lot of Masons out there that don't know ritual, but they benefit from the effects of the ritual. And I think that research falls into the same category. It's just preserving the history and traditions and the background of the institution. And by building that and building upon that foundation, I think there's second and third order effects that kind of oil stain throughout the rest of the lodges. So a brother who is not interested in participating or doing research, I think still reaps the benefits of the research lodges, basically doing that research and continually building on the foundation of Masonry, so that more information comes out, other people are interested, it gets generated, and that foundation grows and grows and grows. And because that foundation is growing, the institution itself becomes stronger, and other brothers can benefit from that. Also, it can pique interest in people who aren't interested in Masonry to become in Masonic research, to become interested in Masonic research. That was kind of my story back when I first joined Masonry. I think it's very, very beneficial that the research lodges do what they do, because I think the institution as a whole benefits from it.
Civil War. Andy? Andy's still here?
Yep, I'm still here.
Okay, so you're
I have to drop off to this as well. I've got another activity this afternoon, but real quick, what we find is that going back to the other conversation just a little bit is that when we travel about, we're kind of like a traveling roadshow. So we usually pick up 2 to 3 petitions every time we go out somewhere because brothers see something different that they don't normally get. They normally get the presentation during the meeting, or if we call off to make it open, the other folks get to see it as well. But because we travel around, they get to see that camaraderie aspect. They get to hang out with us during lunch. They get to go to like the battlefields. I'm very interested in the Yorktown trip that you're planning right now. And they get to see other aspects of it. And belonging to other research lodges, I belong to Maryland as well, 239. That was one of the suggestions I made to the master after I became part of Civil War is like, our state is only 6 hours long. You can go from Ocean City to Cumberland in 6 hours, move the meeting around. And he started the current master's doing that. And they're starting to notice that uptick of interest. And so guys start seeing, oh, I can relate to, I want to see something about early colonial history, or I want to see something about the formation of the Grand Lodge or whatever. They start seeing these aspects to what the other Andy mentioned is that I might not be a fantastic ritualist, but there's other little aspects of Freemasonry that I want to be part of. And the main thing is fellowship. Then guys want to see other guys from other places. And so when you were talking about the early most worshipables that were part of the research lodges, it's the connections upon connections. And every time I travel, they ask for, hey, do you know anybody that does this? And I can point them to a name. And then all of a sudden they start making those connections, and the lodges at least start making connections, and you see the whole thing just flourish from there.
I want to have a slightly different take on this, that the sociological research that's coming about for our next generation of Masons that will support us, the millennials and the Gen X's, all within generality, I'd say all of them are supportive of important causes, but they don't want to know necessarily just the history of the cause. They want to know the why of the cause. I can buy into this when I know why it's this way. And I think that that's the Research Lodge's purpose, is to explain the why.
Yeah.
You're muted, Chris.
Chris, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. Brother Brian, same question. For the average Mason who never attends a research lodge, how does he benefit from it?
He benefits when he perceives a hook that matches his interest set. And the problem is similar to what you find in any high school or college classroom. I've taught U.S. history at both levels. And what I have to do is talk until I find a way of explaining things that makes the light bulb go on. And so finding that hook, I'm teaching high school history predominantly right now. And these kids have not had somebody who teaches like I teach literally ever. God bless our public school system with all the difficulties and travails that they have to deal with. But standing up and telling the story of history seems to be a lost art. And I am apparently among the very few who still insist that that's how it needs to be done. And so Freemasons are much the same way. Many of them haven't thought much about historical stuff unless either they personally were involved in it or it was the one story that their high school history teacher told that they liked. And so it's finding the hook, finding a way to say something or present something that makes sense to the individual. And sometimes you get one person in a crowd, and sometimes you'll get 20 people in a crowd. And it all depends on the crowd. And of course, how well you manage to tell the story that time. It is hard work. For those of you, and I know that I'm kind of preaching to the choir to some extent, but for those people who don't get it, come on down and try to teach a high school history class to make sure you really do understand it. It's a fishing expedition. Throw the hook and see which fish it lands next to that they're going to take the hook and go.
All right. Keith, same question. This is our last question. And again, I'm sorry, I'll restate the question because I don't think everybody actually answered. I'm going to say it one more time. For the average Mason who never attends a research lodge, how does he benefit from our existence?
Well, I think the answers you've already heard are pretty good. I can't really add anything to it, but I do want to take this opportunity before we leave to thank every one of the participants, because I think I have probably learned as much today and it has given me so much to think about. And when I take my walk this afternoon, I'll be thinking about it all the time I'm walking. But I just want to thank everybody. But I really can't add anything.
Okay. All right. Then I do appreciate all the panelists attending. I want to try and wrap this up before some of you were saying you had to leave. I think some already snuck out. I do want to say I appreciate all the panelists. I want to ask all of you to help give me some written answers to the questions. You all have the questions to the ones we didn't get to, because I still need to write an article and I'll pull the best pieces from all of it. I do want to announce that our next meeting, and by the way, if this is your first meeting, our Unstated, I appreciate you coming and you're more than welcome. Here's the dirty little secret. Keep that URL. It works for every single one of our meetings since 2020. That tiny URL will work for every meeting. I just made a recurring meeting in Zoom and I just use it. So there's no reason to ask me for a new link every time. It's always that link. And I made the tiny URL so you can remember it. Our April 9th is our next meeting, and I always get the dates wrong. I kept saying March 29th for some reason because there was the 19th and it's the 26th, so I kept messing that up. So I'm looking at my calendar to make sure I'm not saying it wrong. April 9th, 2 weeks from today. Our guest speaker will be Brother Owen Snowden, and here's the title: How the Masons and Knights of the Golden Horn saved the Ark of the Companions. So that should be a most interesting topic, and you are more than welcome to join us. Please visit us on Facebook, join our Facebook group. I'm going to ask Brother Rooster, who is our worshipful master and been sitting here this whole time, if he's listening. It looks like he's on the phone. Rooster, if you want to, he's our worshipful master. I want to give him a chance to at least say hello before we wrap up. You're on mute. You're off mute, but you're not talking. Are you plugged in? Can't hear you. Nope. Sorry. I don't want to say Brother Richardson has made an effort to attend all of our meetings this year, and I do appreciate that. If you have anything to pass along. Brewster? No, I'm sorry. Okay, well, it's good to have Brother Ruth with us. What sage words as always. I thank everybody for coming. I don't think there were any chat questions that I missed. I think we covered everything. A lot of good stuff. I appreciate everyone. Anybody have a question you want to ask the remaining panelists? Brother Kurt, Patrick, Brandon, Jonathan, any y'all have anything you want to ask before we wrap up?
No, thank you very much, though.
Okay, I appreciate you all hanging out there. We
this has been awesome. Thank you.
It's been awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Very pleased to be able to participate.
Yes, I do thank all of you. I thank everyone for coming. All right, thank you all very much for coming. I appreciate it. We're at 12:06, so this will be about 2 hours. This will be on YouTube, and I will send out a follow-up email to everyone. And the article will be, I have to have it in by May 1st, which means it'll be in the summer edition of the Herald. Is that the correct? Because the spring one's coming out. I got to have it in by May 1st.
Yeah, public summer.
It'll be the summer edition. So I will collate all of this and come up with some good stuff to put in the article. I do appreciate y'all's participation. And I sincerely, if whatever I can do to help bring us together and have more stuff as collectively as our 5 research lodges and the 3 more that apparently Brian is tasked to charter within the next 2 years.
One at a time, please. One at a time.
Whatever I can do on, this is my corner of the internet. So whatever I can do to help facilitate that, I'll be happy to participate. And this has been great. We can't always meet in person. That was one of the questions, is you get to visit other research lodges. I've only visited Peyton Randolph, and I want to visit the other ones at some point, but we can do virtual.
Do this again.
Yes. I'm more than happy to do it again at some time. Brewster, did you get back on?
I think I finally got the volume turned up.
All right, go ahead. Please say something wise and send us off.
Well, I'm glad I made it. I fell asleep there. We got snow this morning. I had to take the dog out, and I sort of dozed off here and didn't wake up 15 after. Told my wife I was planning on getting on here earlier. And on this research thing, I'm a new member at it, and I've enjoyed what I'm learning, and if I hadn't been invited to come and see this for myself, I wouldn't know nothing. But I'm learning, and I enjoy viewing everybody and seeing everybody every time I get on here when I can. I enjoy all that. It's a good thing. And once you, as they said here, once you get hooked, you're hooked.
All right, thank you. Okay, I'm not going to go any longer. I appreciate everybody coming out. There's still 11 people here. We could probably keep going another half hour. I'm sure all of you would hang out, but I do have to.
I'm hungry. It's lunchtime.
Yes, it is. So thank you all one more time. I appreciate it, and this is a labor of love. I appreciate all the nice words from everybody, but seriously, I get a lot out of this, and I enjoy being able to use what technical skills I tell my employer I have to use here to benefit masonry. So I enjoy the heck out of it. So good to see you all. Y'all take care. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you all somewhere soon.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.